Now, during the course of the coronation, 38 Chinese-made CCTV cameras were reportedly used to monitor the crowds using facial recognition technology.
Why do we care that they were Chinese-made? I don't know. I don't really know why that's an issue. But now, is the use of this sort of technology a violation of our rights to privacy?
Well, this morning we're joined by Police Commissioner Steve Turner, who believes that facial recognition is essential to keep our streets safe, as well as human rights activist Peter Tatchell, who participated in the Republic protest in London on Saturday. Well, Peter, let's start with you. Good morning to both of you. Peter, is this spying? Is this an invasion of our privacy?
Yes.
Did you say an invasion of our privacy? Or is this keeping us safe from threats?
Well, of course, we live in a democracy, and in a democracy, citizens should have a right to be free from state surveillance, unless there is compelling justification for that intrusion. And what the police did on Saturday was subject to a crowd of law-abiding, peaceful protesters to not only facial recognition technology, but also to mass photographing so that our images, our faces can be put into a police database. We were not committing any crime. We were peacefully protesting in accordance with the law, with the police's prior approval. The police had approved the protest that took place in Trafalgar Square. So the question is, why should citizens participating in a peaceful, lawful protest that had been approved by the police, why were they subjected to this technology?
Well, is that not a fair question, Steve? Is it not an invasion of privacy of law-abiding citizens?
I don't think it is. I think when you look at an event of the magnitude of the coronation and the hundreds of thousands of people that were lining the streets, we had over 100 heads of state there, then personally, I want our police force to do everything they possibly can to make sure people are safe. And it's just wrong to say that's an invasion of privacy when it's all about keeping the public safe.
Peter, what do you say to that? I mean, is this the only way to stay across the crowds when it is an event of this magnitude?
Well, first of all, we were a long, long way away from any heads of state. Secondly, Republic, which campaigns for a democratically elected head of state, has a long history of peaceful, non-disruptive protest. And indeed, on Saturday, there were no incidents whatsoever. We were perfectly peaceful and law-abiding, and even people who are pro the king commended us on our behaviour. There were individual police officers who expressed deep concern and anxiety that the leaders of Republic were preemptively arrested for merely possessing placards. That is an abuse of power. Possessing a placard is not a justification for arrest. And, when it comes to the facial recognition technology, of course, if people participate in an event where it's known that there may be disruption or problems, then that's understandable. But Republic has a very long, proud history of entirely peaceful, lawful protest and has always cooperated with the police.
Yeah, but there's an argument here, Peter, isn't there? I mean, is part of the problem here that you're almost taking it a bit too personally? Yes, Republic has got a history of, peaceful protests, and we allow and should celebrate the fact we can protest peacefully in this country. But there are people who don't want to do that, and we know from past experience they infiltrate peaceful groups in order to provide a bit of cover and all the rest of it. That's what that technology is for, isn't it? It's for weeding out those people who are known to be troublemakers. And if you're not a troublemaker, if you're not someone with a history, a criminal history, then you've nothing to worry about, have you?
Well, there's no record of anybody infiltrating Republic's protest in order to cause disruption or criminal acts. There's no record of it whatsoever. So Republic should be dealt with on the basis of evidence. And the police approved this protest. In the weeks before, Republic negotiated with the police and secured their agreement for the protest to take place. So on those grounds, there is no justification for exceptional measures like the police used on Saturday.
Steve, what do you say to that? No justification for these measures.
I think Stephen's right. You're taking it very personally. There was a few hundred protesters from Republic who campaigned perfectly peacefully, perfectly correctly, and weren't arrested. So that demonstration went ahead. We're talking about facial recognition that was there to keep safe hundreds of thousands of people, and you're focusing on just a few hundred to do that, and that's wrong to conflate the two. I think what you're trying to do is you're trying to make an issue out of facial recognition by keeping it focused on just a few hundred people. There could have been terrorists in there. Yes, you may not have been anywhere near heads of state, but what if somebody in the crowd was getting towards those heads of state? We really don't know. And like I said, I think the vast majority of the public will be happy today that the police service in London did everything they possibly could to keep everybody there safe.
Peter?
Well, can I just say that if I was a police commander, I would make the calculated judgment that a terrorist or some other person doing bad things would not mix in with a protest. They would mix in amongst the general public. And that's where the facial recognition technology should be used if there was...
Which is exactly where it was used. It wasn't just used to single out protesters. It was used for everybody. 30-odd cameras weren't just scanning anybody in a yellow T-shirt. They were scanning the crowd for these things. So that you've just created your own argument. That is exactly why facial recognition should be used, because people do try and blend in with the crowd.
But, the point was, as I was saying, if someone was going to do something bad, they wouldn't blend in with the protest group. They'd blend in with the general public. And that is not what the police did with regard to the protest. They couldn't scan the whole crowd of hundreds of thousands of people. They chose, among other things, to focus on a peaceful, lawful protest that they, the police, had approved. And that's my problem. That's where I think it's wrong.
But you're assuming their focus. We don't know where those camera recognition. We don't know how many faces that scanned. At the last time facial recognition was used at a large event, it scanned somewhere in the region of 100,000 faces. On an event the scale of yesterday, I guess when the numbers come out, the Met Police would have scanned anywhere between 150 and 200,000 faces yesterday, and yet you're focusing on a few hundred.
Isn't there an argument here, Peter, to say... and, we don't want anything bad to happen. If something bad had happened and the police had not used technology which was available to them, I mean, you would be up in arms about it, wouldn't you?
Well, that's all if and maybe. I mean, the point is, in a free and democratic society, citizens have a right to go about their business, including the right to peacefully protest, without being subjected to state surveillance. We don't want to live in a Big Brother society where the state is monitoring everything we do or targeting people who are going about a peaceful, lawful protest. That is not compatible with democracy. It's what they do in Russia and China. It's not what we expect in Britain. And I think for people who saw how the police behaved on Saturday, this is exactly what I've experienced in Moscow. That's how the Moscow police treat protesters. And it's got no place in democratic Britain.
Final thoughts, Steve?
That's just not true. There was about 60 arrests out of hundreds of thousands of people at the biggest event on the world stage for over a decade. And it's just simply not true to say they were targeted in that way. The police use intelligence to decide which members of the crowd, which people they see, who they think may cause a problem. And to say everybody has a right to go about their business is exactly true. But that's what we've seen over the last few years, protesters doing. Stop Oil protesters were arrested on Saturday. And we've already seen how they stop ordinary law-abiding people going about their business. So peaceful protest is one thing, stopping other people going about their business is something else, and potentially stopping somebody enjoying the coronation that they've spent time and money to go along and see because they believe it's the right thing for this country is just wrong.